Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You can't go out, man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
I want the help of the group here on something today, and I don't know exactly who the group is. It's a complaint we've been getting over the last 2 years. Who's the group? Today it's Chris, Lucy, Jessica, Mike, and I don't know who the fifth person is. We'll find out together in a little bit. That person is dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. But the place that I need help is I want you guys to help me develop a character. Develop a character that is less impartial than the journalist I've always been, and a character that works for DraftKings, a gambling company, and helps you with your bets, but also hearkens to a different time in gambling, a very different time. When I was a kid and you'd call a phone line, and the tout on the other end of that phone would just be an overly dramatic cartoon character of forceful intensity telling you exactly how you should bet a game. The reason I bring this up is because I came in today and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, in muted tones, says to me, "You cost people a lot of money last night because you forced me into against the spread and Thursday Thunder, and I picked the Raptors last night, -3.5. And I don't want any part of any of this." Dan, why would you work for a gambling company? Well, a lot of things happen. And then we got to freedom, and now I'm a gambling man. And I'm a gambling man in a way that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that I'm betting first halves. I don't like that I'm in-game wagers. I don't like these things about myself.
Oh, shut up. You gamble
You
so
love
much.
it. Come on.
You text me all the time.
No, what I'm saying.
gambling.
No, this is why I don't love it. No, wait. I do love gambling, but I tell you now, honestly and sincerely, and it's not because I always lose the games. I always lose. Why? I'm making way too many bets. It's not smart. It's not wise the way I do it. Mike has been killing it the last 3 weeks, and I don't kill it because
You bet every game.
I'm betting too many other things on my own. I wander stray. I don't have the moderation that he does. And he has no moderation.
I don't either. It's just what I tell you.
You went 27-24 last weekend.
That's right. The number of times.
That's the best kind of day.
You still lose, though, because of the vig.
It's the best kind of day.
No, Chris
the
Cody-
best kind of day is when I make $7.50.
That's happened to me so many times.
Oh, this is the best. Just from morning till night.
Can we go back? What is this phone number you used to
This
call?
is what I want to talk about. Thank you, Jessica, because I want to know how it is. You have to understand, this was so long ago. So this is something of a discovery for me as a child around sports. I think sports are just fun as sports. It's great. But then there's this dirty underbelly of illegality that is shameful.
Objection. Coding.
Back then?
I mean, it's just, I guess back then when it was against the rules. But now,
But this is what I'm saying. It was the 19...
the underbelly, it was never dirty. It was beautiful.
People were soft.
It was beautiful. And while I'm very happy our partners, DraftKings, are legal in several states, I do miss going behind that Walgreens.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys at some point how Stugotz and I have been doing this for years, because Stugotz is essentially the person who helps me with this.
You use his guy.
He's your cowboy?
I don't know his guy, and his guy doesn't know who I am, because I've had to live by journalism rules for a while, but it's good to be outside that Walgreens or show up at the cigar store and there's an envelope.
A red phone. Sending a Western Union. I learned so much. There are skill sets that younger generations just don't know. I don't think they know how to send a Western Union MoneyGram.
How
to
to
the
send
Philippines.
a letter, more like.
Yeah.
How many stamps do I need?
It's actually not, that era is not that bygone, Dan, because I just checked my phone right now and I have 2 Score phone numbers that don't work, but I don't have the heart to delete them from my phone because back in 2005, this was the only way that I could find the score of the New Jersey Institute of Technology's basketball game.
Lucy is shocked right now.
You would call to get a score?
You would call to get a score because Google didn't have the score, and the ESPN app, these weren't actual things. So you would either listen to Eddie Kaplan on WQAM, who was great about giving all the scores, all of them, or you would call this phone number and you would get it quickly. Keep in mind also the speed on cellular data, now it's very quick. But before these websites, or even when the early days of these websites, your speed, it would be way quicker to just call up a number and get the score that you wanted.
This is giving me a flashback to my family does a bowl like pick'em thing every year for all the college football bowl games, and I used to be in charge of like making the I'd handwrite like a little thing with all the matchups, and my dad would be like, "I need the newspaper. I gotta see who the favorites are. Give me the newspaper." And I'd be like trying to open the newspaper to find the sports section to see all the favorites on the bowl games.
Yeah.
Now you could just send a little link. Here, Dad, click on this.
The
It still
shock-
takes just as long for him, though.
The shock that keeps sweeping across Lucy's face, because I can do it worse than that. Like, my earliest memories of getting score updates were like, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. I remember being underneath a pool table in Miramar. I'd to be 46 years old. And it's sort of like a line score is showing up on a screen on baseball scores. And I have to wait for everyone to go, and it's like Atari graphics to get the top of the 4th on the Yankees. I might as well have had like a stenographer from the 1800s trying to send a message.
That ESPN ticker must have crushed.
I remember when MLB first trotted out their Gamecast and you could see pitch by pitch and what a game changer that was for fiends.
Do we still need the bottom line?
Not for scores, for sure.
Now, bottom line's like more programming updates now.
How did Lucy and Jessica, at any point in your lives, have you gotten lost outside a stadium and not had a way of contacting someone because there was no cell phone?
That happens almost every weekend on our college football tour. There is no service in these college towns.
It's terrible. Trying to call an Uber from a college town to leave the game because your team laid an egg in the third quarter. Not that happened to me in Chapel Hill or anything, but it's tough.
It's harder for this generation because they're expecting the service. You at least were like, I got nothing.
That's why on campus,
Like, these people have a phone, and they're like, I should be able to contact people, and they can't. It's harder for us.
That's why all
And
these.
you knew a phone number. You knew at least a phone number.
That's why all these podunk towns on Twitter is like, you don't even have an on-campus stadium. That's because I got 5G. It works. I can find
Okay,
myself.
Mike.
I can't believe the differences that are coming to the entirety of the industry when everything falls on gambling state by state the way that it's falling on marijuana, because you're watching so many things change because of the money in the sport, the money across sports, the business of sports. And Jeremy was telling me that as a Bally's broadcaster, he's not allowed, just like Woj and Shams, he's not allowed to bet on the games.
So it's Jeremy.
No, I said he was telling me outside.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I meant to say he
Well,
was
who's
telling me
the
outside.
marshmallow man with the Emmy?
I do not know. Oh, the Emmy there. Yes, the Emmy there. Jeremy, you're not allowed to. You're the one who greeted me this morning saying to me, you cost people a lot of money last night. And I believe there's a character that can be created here where I am a gambling tout and I lean into, you know what, I'm not going to hide in the shadows anymore. I'm going to break free, and I'm going to be the guy from the 80s who you'd call on the phone, and he would shout at you. Mike, it's hard to explain to anybody in the modern age what these touts sounded like on the phone. All of them were trying to be louder than the next guy.
The best. Oh, what a time.
And, I'll help you punch your guy in the face, and a lot worse than that. He would beat the hell out of your guy because he knew exactly what was going to happen in the sport. But, Jeremy, you're not allowed to bet on the games at all, right? You have to sit out all of this.
That's correct. I don't bet on the Heat, and I don't bet on any basketball as an NBA broadcaster. And I think those are the rules kind of league-wide, where anybody who's working on a league broadcast isn't allowed to be gambling on anything within the league. And it is interesting to see where that goes over the span of time, right? Because gambling is entering all of these leagues in partnerships with DraftKings and others. So I am intrigued to see if years down the line that changes, but I think that's sort of the industry standard. I don't bet on the Heat, on the Marlins, on the Panthers because I cover those teams.
We appreciate your professionalism. Fuck, man. It was a good line because he looks ridiculous.
You had it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, they were right.
Sometimes you know you have a good
Right,
line, and that's
right.
when it's just like, oh, this is going to crush.
And to trip up on that sentence.
Professionalism.
Yes. As
Unprofessionalism.
as
At least it's all on him still. And
as
no
I
one's
was
looking at me.
Yeah, but here's what makes it even worse. I was really hoping to get into a deep dive journalistic discussion without ever mentioning that it looks funny, and you punctured that too with the way that you stumbled over it.
Well, you can't puncture this because then all the air will come out.
I understand why Dan's confused because for most of his life, keep in mind, Dan is very old. But he looks great today. We all like your outfit.
Yeah, Dan, you look awesome.
Yeah.
What?
Is that the Mark Maron collection?
That is not a compliment because and it is. I should take it as a compliment, but it just means, Dan, you usually don't look awesome in any way.
No.
I've only stopped with the T-shirts and just put on a flannel shirt because this is our winter. It's 63 degrees out, and I got like 7 things.
You're bundled up?
This is me bundled up. Yes, it's a flannel shirt.
I'm wearing a turtleneck today. It's so cold out. Dan, you look like a divorced dad, and a great one at that.
Yeah. I have a divorced dad. I can attest. You do. Like on a first date.
Like you're the divorced dad that has your ex-wife being like, what? Now you look good? Now you're putting it together?
Yeah.
Where was this effort when we were together?
What's your gambit? Guess what? Dollaritas are back.
You guys are gonna have a great dinner at the Cheesecake Factory.
Blue Martini is where I'm headed.
Oh,
tonight.
you got to have the meatloaf at Cheesecake.
Get whatever you want on me.
Lucy, are we going to buy your dad a Christmas gift?
I hope so. I am having a real tough time figuring out what to buy him, and you guys are men, some with children. So what do you want for Christmas that I could also get for my dad?
I'm a bad wanter. I'm hard to buy gifts for.
That's how my dad is. I can't buy him anything, and it sucks. And then I feel bad because I know it hurts his feelings Christmas Day when he doesn't have a gift, but he won't tell me what he wants, and if he wants something, he just buys it. It's very stressful.
So is someone supposed to fake it there? Is somebody supposed to fake it with, like, is dad supposed to just tell you what he likes so that you can go through the military mechanics of marching over there and getting him that cologne?
That's what I would love. But when he wants something, he's just going to buy it. It doesn't matter if it's like 4 days before Christmas. He'll just go buy it for himself. And he'll be like, well, I wanted it, so I bought it. Yeah, let us get you one gift. Because every year for Christmas, I feel so bad because I have a salary now and I'm showing up, here's a bag of peanut M&Ms for Christmas.
He would love a collage of all of your travels over college football that he got to star in by screwing things up and costing the company money.
That's great. Actually, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think that the sentimental stuff that your dad wouldn't go out of his way to do on his own, a collage of his children, like a photo shoot of his children, something like that your dad would never put in the work to actually do himself, but would deeply appreciate is the best, or you go bourbon.
I don't want anything with my siblings in it. They're not willing to put in the work, so this is not their time to shine. Sorry, Kate. Sorry, Jack.
Photos of his daughter having the time of her life on the road that sometimes he's in is a pretty good artistic gift.
This is your first year working on the Le Batard Show. Get him some T-shirts. My parents have so many DraftKings and Le Batard Show shirts, and they love them.
You know what you should do? Do the collage of you on the road, and then screen cap the tweets of your dad threatening to fight that Iowa fan Twitter account.
Frame it.
Yeah,
At the lunch.
Make a blanket, maybe.
Jeremy, do you think in our lifetime any of this stuff will change? The reason that I bring all of it up as it relates to journalism is, like I said, Woj and Schefter and these guys and Shams, they can move the lines now. They have inside information. One of the reasons Jeremy can't gamble on games is because he knows that Bam's hip is hurt before other people do, and he can move lines, change information, and so you need your information to be pure. You need it to be objective, the integrity of the results, even though we're talking about the refs every day and they have a disproportionate impact on all the games. The integrity of the results have to be something you trust. Ultimately, and this is weird for gambling to have been in the shadows and illegal and shamed for a long time, you have to trust that nobody has insider information that's illegal to have gathered. And so you have to spread a blanket around a lot of employees, a lot of employees, some of whom might have gambling habits. You don't know. Just across the spectrum, you're telling a lot of employees this is an absolute. You cannot gamble. But you're also telling me, because I've been told referees can't even go to Vegas and walk into a casino. Broadcasters can do that, correct? Broadcasters can bet in Vegas, can they not?
I sure hope so, because I've walked into casinos. I didn't bet on sports, but I've gambled. So I hope we're not exposing me and getting me suspended from the league, Dan.
Well, I'm asking you guys this tightrope because you're really asking a lot of employees with a lot of different. You're making a blanket rule and you're telling people, although it's not even said that clearly. Is it like
No, it's often said that clearly. I don't know if I think I'm pretty good for this because Jeremy's pretty new school and you're from a bygone era. Even though, congrats on your divorce, and I'm happy for you. But I think this is pretty easy to understand. I really do. If I participate in a sport, I'm not allowed to bet on that sport. It's a very simple concept. It's not hard.
The Iowa football team learned that the hard way.
I would say the more interesting part is when people like Woj and Shams have that sort of insider information, and the way that we saw them ultimately influence people betting on the NBA draft. Right? Because they say, like, this team is focused on this player, not only in the days leading up, but sometimes a few minutes before picks are actually made. And that ultimately can heavily influence the way that people are gambling because the lines don't change instantly on who's going to go to what team. And that's the stuff where, we saw ESPN sort of institute, hey, Woj, you can't tweet out draft picks before they're actually made. But I wonder how much that actually had to do with gambling more so than even spoiling the draft for people.
There's only one person that's allowed to do this and get away with it, and that's Al Michaels, very clearly.
He does it in the funniest way, where he is still at the end of games. He did this either the last game or the one before that, maybe the Jets game. He's still talking in the coded language during the games. And the reason that I want to bring all of this up to you, Mike, is because as this show evolves and as the media space evolves, Matt Barnes is on yesterday, and they smoke weed. And that's just not something that you would have seen 10 years ago. It wouldn't have existed. But we now are in partnership with a gambling company, and all of this stuff that's hidden is now getting out in front of everybody. And when I talk about, you say, yes, it's very simple, Dan. Employees aren't allowed to gamble. Okay. Do you realize how ripe for contamination from every angle that is, that you've got so many different employees of so many different types and kinds who don't care about what your rules are or even your workplace rules? They might risk that. There are so many impeachments on integrity that can come from so many angles. Never mind just referees. It's everybody now. We're all in this changing game of something that has been stigmatized is now legalized. And we all play by a set of rules that are different for me, that are different for you, and they're different from Emmy-winning Jeremy, who's 26 years old and going to learn how to play this game when Caesars and everybody else is getting it, Bally's, they're all in the game with sports.
That's
and
why
sports
regulation
is taking all that money.
That's why regulation is good. That's why it being legalized in all these states is a good thing, because you have these league partners actually flagging the behavior, and we've already seen several suspensions in the NFL, in college football, across sports. You've seen this behavior get flagged, and it's a notion in sports that the cheaters are always ahead of the game, and that even when it comes to gambling, there is. And I saw just a couple days ago, Maverick Carter was in the news cycle, and then sure enough, all the message boards were looking at LeBron performances that might have been questionable. This is always going to be something that hangs over the sport, but the fact that all DraftKings and all these other companies are legal now doesn't all of a sudden open this portal. Yes, it's more accessible now, but gambling scandals are as old as sports are. Be it Black Sox, be it Pete Rose. This is something that sports have always had to navigate, and it's actually easier now with their league partners playing ball with them.
Well, you say it's easier now, but what's not easier now, Mike, is that LeBron has created a giant economy around his friends and friends in communities that are competitive and like gambling. We now have information very close to LeBron that one of his guys was betting through an illegal bookie. And you tell me, let's not make it LeBron and Maverick Carter. Let's just make it a hypothetical. I tell you that one of your best friends is your business partner, and you guys like gambling, and it's fun, and you enjoy doing it, and there's a basketball game being played, and you are in your 17th season, 16th season in the NBA, keeping yourself entertained night to night, because you've been doing this for a long time, and it hurts. Like, if there's a prop bet for player X gets over 19 points and that player can do that any night he wants to, it's the easiest money to just do that for your friend. You don't think those games are played inside of games?
I do think that those games are played inside of games. There's always these stories that you hear that it's gambling lore of a player like screaming, being screamed at from the stands. Hey, I need 2 more points from you. And player turning to them saying, I got you. But ultimately the sport, it governs all this stuff. Because when you're in these games, unless you're an absolute fiend, a sicko that is actually altering the results of these games, the most important thing is your job, is your profession, is winning the game.
Tries to govern, though, you say.
Yeah.
Tries to govern. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, look, there's scandals all over Europe when it comes to betting that have rocked some of the most prestigious clubs over in Europe. This is something that the world has had to deal with, and I actually think it being legalized in more and more places is a really good thing when it comes to keeping integrity, because the tech that these companies have to track down even proxies, it goes beyond what you know, because there's a lot of stuff that they use to track that you didn't even know was possible.
Now that you mentioned LeBron, Dan, I think we need to go back and check out the 2010-11 finals, because it sounds like Maverick may have had the Mavericks.
You didn't just do that. Did he do that? He did do that, Jessica.
Good joke.
He's terrible. The whole LeBron thing, though, is interesting. It answers, I think, the age-old debate, because Michael Jordan would never have a gambling scandal attached to him.
Never.
That's right.
I was joking with my friends, like, damn, like, even Jordan did that first, too, and he did it better.
Did you feel like there was anybody out there talking about this link beyond saying the gotcha Maverick and it's a headline? You've got 2 real power brokers right next to what could be a gambling scandal if we wanted to make it one. I haven't seen it. I have no interest in doing it, but I'm just talking to you about human behavior around competition, and because we're talking about how much fun it is to do some of this stuff, because we're in an over-caffeinated age. Like, we need 100 games to be going on at once. Jessica's Steelers are playing tonight. It's Steelers-Patriots. The only joy in tonight is that the NFL's getting into comedy content, because we finally get to laugh at the Steelers and the Patriots after 20 years of losing, after 20 years of knowing that they were going to make you hurt, not laugh.
Tonight's a night to revel, I think. If you're an NFL fan of a certain age, actually, there's such a wide swath of age ranges in which your lifetime was dominated by the Steelers and the Patriots. If you would have told 21-year-old me there would come a time where a game was on Amazon and it would be between the Patriots and the Steelers, and everyone's saying, why do we have to watch this? Isn't there some sort of flex? This is terrible. These are 2 of the worst teams to watch. Are you kidding me? The day has finally arrived. Look how old I am now compared to when the Steelers have never been bad in my lifetime. The Patriots were bad when I was very, very young, but most of my life, they were incredible. A Tom Brady-less Patriots being terrible, a Ben Roethlisberger-less Steelers being terrible. This is not anything I've ever had to deal with. So I'm going to revel in tonight the same way that I reveled in Colts-Broncos a Thursday night from last season, where it was just everybody knew going into it to be the worst game, and it delivered. I hope today is a slop fest.
We are putting together truly one of the most disgusting Thursday Thunders that the world has ever seen. And what's funny about how disgusting this game is, it's Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky, because Kenny Pickett got surgery on Monday morning on his ankle. He's expected to be back. They did not place him on injured reserve. But the Steelers are still in the playoff hunt. Yeah. This may be a playoff team. As bad as both of them are and as unfun as they are to watch, one of them may actually be in the postseason. And one of them is coached by Bill Belichick. I don't understand it either, Mike.
Would you be okay with a committee deciding at the end of the season that the Steelers just couldn't be
No.
in? That a committee picks one team.
No.
Well, because it would be the Falcons who would get picked this year, I think.
Definitely not then.
I
I think that answers your question.
The Steelers, they're not a playoff team.
The defense is incredible.
TJ Watt over 0.75 sacks.
Let's go.
I have seen here recently, Lucy, and it's not normal. It's not a normal thing in college football or in media coverage in general to see someone burst onto the scene and all of a sudden climb to the top or toward the top of national rankings on you're a rookie. You're not a rookie. You've been doing this for a while. But in terms of getting out there into a larger landscape, people are really noticing your work here. And I saw a list from what I believe to be a very prestigious source that I cannot name right now because I forgot. But the list has the 100 top college football personalities this year. Not newcomers, not in a region of some sort, not merely nationally, internationally as well. And I see some people who've been in the game a long time at 51 and 52, Rick Neuheisel, Trevor Maddich. When you saw your name on the list, when you got this list for the first time, when you were informed of this, were you told, did someone spoil it, or did they tell you where you were ranked?
I did not know this list was coming out. I actually found out because some of the listeners of this show sent it to me, and they were like, look, you're number 24. Very prestigious. Top 25%. I'm up there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're ahead of Danny Cannell.
As I should be.
You're only two spots behind Kirk Herbstreit. Like, this is some elite media company you're keeping.
Look, if I had a dog and brought it to games like Herbie did, I would be higher than him. I'm just going to say
He's cheating.
He's absolutely cheating. I'd be top 10 if I brought a dog with me. So
She's also ahead of Urban Meyer, Dan, and Double Vodka Don, who I must assume is an Ohio State fan of some sort, but at 81. So well ahead of Double Vodka Don.
The best part of this list is the guy who made it, Big Game Boomer, has himself at number 98.
Well, he makes a good list.
Greg McElroy falling behind the guy that made the list is interesting.
What else? Tim Tebow's in like the 80s. So when I tell you that Lucy Roden has made it to the very top of this... Rodine, excuse me. Well, we'll know her name soon enough.
It's tough.
She's ahead of Paul Feinbaum.
I mean, there's only one E in
Reese Davis.
Who else is up on that list that doesn't deserve to be up on that list?
Oh, I think the entire list is fraudulent.
Yeah, why is Bruce Feldman the rep from the U? Does that hurt your feelings a little bit, Mike?
I mean, he's a great reporter. I would have him ranked ahead of 62, but I also wouldn't just lump him in with Miami. And there's plenty of people to choose from that prestigious institution. But Big Game Boomers tricked you all again.
No.
Because he knows how to internet better than anybody else. Because he puts together these lists that are bullshit that he does from his home.
What do you mean this is bullshit?
You think Big Game Boomers at all the tailgates?
What do you mean this
When
is
he puts together a 100 best tailgates in America and he feels like he's some sort of expert on this, do you think he's going to all these tailgates?
Lucy's at 24.
Dan, he did a list the other day of every school's favorite Thanksgiving dish.
It was great.
Ooh, what was Miami's? This sounds like sour grapes, Mike, I'm going to be honest.
It's just tricking you. Honestly, where our video department is failing is every time we do a top 5, there should be a graphic with it because the internet loves graphics when it comes to any sort of countdown because they can argue about it. But this isn't someone that samples the nation. This is a guy named Big Game Boomer that only until recently was fairly anonymous. He just put up a picture of himself not too long ago and revealed himself and his identity. This is just the internet. This is an amorphous thing. This is totally subjective. How are you giving credence to this?
Because I'm on the list.
What number
What
should
do
you
you
be?
mean?
But so is Tim Brando at 8. It's bizarre.
Desmond Howard and Joey Galloway are in the 70s. This list is credible to me. Lucy Rodin.
It's just all the names of people that, except
There's no
a couple.
Spencer Hall on it. There's no Ryan Nanny.
Taylor isn't on
There's
it.
no Mike Ryan.
Jeremy isn't
Well,
on it.
wait
Yeah,
a
this
minute.
feels like a pretty official list to me. There was
Jessica-
total UCF exclusion.
Jessica
Oh, Jeremy, Jesus Christ. Enough.
Jessica did stumble onto something there that I think as Mike gets more and more, Mike bucks up sometimes and doesn't know where it is that he's a little bit defensive. And I think you may have hit a nerve when you said Mike Ryan's not on this list.
That just shows you how uninformed it is.
But Double Vodka Don is on it. So that's in the pro
I wasn't
column.
familiar with Double Vodka Don until I searched out his Twitter, and even the first couple of videos made me look at him and say, yes, your nickname should be Double Vodka Don.
Shaq meme. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Well, so Mike, as media changes and you want to be an insider and you have college football information and you want to also be able to gamble, I don't think you can get on lists like this unless you've got a double vodka theme in it. Like if you want to climb,
Sure you can. I mean, you think Brett McMurphy's calling himself Double Bourbon Brett?
That's a great idea, by the way. How long until Brett McMurphy just gets his own bowl game, by the way? He should just be the title sponsor of the Brett McMurphy
Yeah.
Bowl because he has carved out quite a niche for
The
himself.
LA Bowl just needs to have a mustache on it next year.
they gave Gronk a bowl game, right?
It's the same. The LA Bowl does creative licensing things where it was the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, and now it's a Gronk Bowl. Jimmy Kimmel had the mascot, the Jimmy Camel. I think the LA Bowl just goes out and seeks media partners to help elevate the bowl game in itself. But I don't think Gronk is a part of this committee. I just think he's along for the ride.
But Lucy, you and Mike, it's been fascinating to hear you talk in the corridors here because you guys have gotten into the teeth of the business of what NIL is as it's being created around you. And that makes for a different kind of insider. It makes for an insider. When I've told you that sports business gets covered very poorly, rarely is anything going to get it covered as poorly as something like that in a small town where Alabama doesn't care so much how the economy of all that works. They just want to make sure the football machine gets fed. And Alabama's going to have a hard time keeping up with any city, big city that's got oil, a Texas A&M, and figures out how to navigate this system of business better than Alabama navigates it. Like, this is a very difficult place for Nick Saban to keep up. At this speed of changing rules when he's a rule guy.
As the 24th ranked best media personality, I'm qualified to speak on this. I actually kind of disagree with that. I think that the smaller schools and the college towns are better equipped to handle NIL. The way NIL is sort of set up is it's like 5 to 7 people up top who give a ton of money, and then there's this like cash pool of fans underneath.
So it's
where-
like every company.
Yeah, pretty much. Where it's like, if you look at a school like USC, LA doesn't really give a shit about that football team. They don't really care. Where if you look at a school like Nebraska, where people are so passionate, that's a better investment in their money. I honestly think that college towns are better equipped to succeed, and Alabama is always going to be on the forefront of that, and Nick Saban is always going to be 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and I think he warned us of that a few years ago.
You all tried to do the Nick Saban is slipping show earlier this season, by the way.
I'm guilty.
And I said they just have a little bit of an issue at quarterback. And guess what?
USF game, though.
That was a tough game. And their
3-3 at halftime.
Their starting quarterback from that game is now transferring back to Notre Dame to play lacrosse.
No, but Jessica got this.
Shout out to Tyler Buckner. Love that guy.
Jessica got this exactly right, because I did say at the beginning of the season, because we were celebrating the Dion stuff, it's like, really? Alabama's going to lose or fall as a dynasty quietly because of how we haven't seen them open that way, where they lose at home by 2 touchdowns. And to me, I'm confused by the NIL, right? I'm not in the weeds of it like you guys are. So I'm watching that Texas-Alabama game, and I'm like, holy shit, Texas's receivers are big. Like those.
All right, you are banned from using Texas's receivers are big. It has been your only bit of Longhorn analysis this week.
It has been, but Mike, it's because I'm seeing professional receivers at the beginning of the season beat Alabama, and I thought the game had changed right there
They beat their pants.
because that's Texas money.
Texas has a Pancake Factory NIL program where it was reported each member of their offensive line gets $1 million. There are schools that would surprise you that are really good at NIL that got a jump on it, and I think you're seeing some immediate results. And there are some schools that you're puzzled as to why they're not getting the results because they have a bunch of resources. Ohio State, Texas A&M, they've spent money. Ohio State actually spends less money than you would think, and they've struggled to get organized. It's case by case. Texas, it makes all the sense in the world that they would mobilize all their money, their big alumni base, and they would be good right away. Louisville makes less sense. But in 1 year, they hit the portal really well. They were super organized in NIL, and they got immediate results. Miami, I think, is super organized when it comes to NIL. They dealt with the John Ruiz stuff, but it's still a process with them. FSU, peaks and valleys. Florida, peaks and valleys. It's a very weird game. You have a school like Auburn right now. Let me tell you something about Auburn. Auburn will spend whatever on whoever and not take any lessons from what happened at Texas A&M.
And no one has to go to class, right?
I'm not going to go that far. But Jimbo, it's been reported that Jimbo was so obsessed about having the greatest recruiting class ever that he would constantly be in between talking to kids, check with somebody on composite rankings because he wanted that achievement. And I think Auburn is replicating that. And it could be successful. We don't have large enough samples, but it does feel a little Texas A&M-y.
But yeah, so much of it is coaching based. Like Texas beat Alabama because Sark called a great game, and they were able to take advantage of Alabama's weaknesses, which at that point of the season was they didn't know how to use their quarterback yet, which is, I think, something that if they do end up playing against one another in the national championship game, I'll be really interested to see, because Alabama's made a ton of progress offensively since then. They still had some shaky games. They've had games where their offensive line's played a lot better, but has still been a little iffy. And there's been games when Jalen Milroe has looked incredible and also missed some, pretty wide open passes. But I'm excited for that rematch just because you have coaches that talent-wise have a great matchup on the field, but also from like a play calling perspective, like they will be dueling against one another as well.
I'll give you 2 more schools that might surprise you that have struggled with NIL considering their stature. And you would take the results of Lincoln Riley's first year and say, oh, they know what they're doing on NIL. But word on the street is, it's not all that it was cracked up to be. Same thing happened with LSU. A lot of big promises, and then chatter amongst people and people that are heavily involved in recruiting saying, oh, it's actually not all there.
But this is the part that I find fascinating, right? As all of these things change, and you guys from the inside, as legitimate insiders, Mike defensive that he's not one of the top 100, but
I'm fine. It's just a guy.
Legitimate
No, it's not. It's very
insiders.
serious.
It's not just a guy. Put Lucy at 24. How can you not find fascinating the business of how all of this is going to be covered when we can, not too long in the future, if people get this far inside, tell you USC is doing well at NIL, Texas is doing well, or USC is doing poorly, Texas is doing well. I don't think that's information that people are getting elsewhere. Like you're looking at the scoreboard. I don't think they're tying it to how this. You need somebody coaching and leading your team that knows business, not necessarily Brian Kelly.
I think you need an organized NIL collective around a coach that knows what they're doing and knows how to develop talent. Because if you go all in on money, you're going to end up like Texas A&M. There are other things that you need to consider.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for making the time for us. We appreciate it, sir. Jim Larrañaga with us. I was thinking to myself as you came on, because I'm looking at you and you've been doing this for so long, and obviously the results are obvious, but your love for it is a thing that endures. And I don't know if you've considered retirement. I know that you've got a contract through 2026. It seems like something you love so much that you almost could not do it. So thank you for joining us. But I wanted to ask you, at this point in life, what gets you up in the morning to go to the gym, because it's still the place you love the most?
Yeah, my favorite time of the day, Dan, is practice. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get to be around 18 to 22-year-olds. They keep me young. I love teaching and coaching, working with them, trying to explain to them the different ways that will help them improve and help our team improve. I'm constantly making adjustments in our practices to see if we can improve in the areas that need the most attention. And I was very happy with the last two efforts. We beat Notre Dame, held them to 49. Last night we held LIU to 49. And that our emphasis has been at the defensive end of the floor, and it's starting to pay dividends.
This seems like one of the best teams you've had, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. But I really do want to talk to you about the coaching of young men. You were listening while we were talking about how this business changes. Like, I can't even imagine how dirty this game has been in the shadows for a long time. Now more of it in the money realm is out in the open. But when you heard us talking about the business of the game, I would imagine that Jim Larrañaga at some point has to feel a little bit confused by everything happening in his sport. And it makes you no less a leader. It's just like, what the hell's happening here? The rules are all different. We're just going to make them all up. And okay, now we're giving these guys millions of dollars. Okay, let's do it that way.
Yeah, but Dan, the game of basketball has evolved over the years. Think about back in my day, there was no three-point shot. So in 1986, they put in a three-point shot. You had to adjust, all right? And then you had college basketball, NCAA tournament in arenas, maybe 20,000. Now we play in a football stadium that seats 75,000. So the game has been evolving every 4 or 5 years. It used to be one and done. It used to be high school kids could go directly to the NBA. Now it's one and done. I mean, things are constantly changing. NIL and the transfer portal have really put college athletics in turmoil. I mean, it's the wild, wild west for sure. But, for me and my staff, we just keep plugging away, trying to do the best we can with whatever the rules are.
What do you view in your career as the most challenging of the evolutions? The one that you regard as, this one gave me the most trouble, this one kept me up at night, this is the one that made me most uncomfortable? Because you must be obsessive compulsive about your work, correct?
Yes, but the thing about any job is there's always adversity, there's always difficulties. To point something out and say, oh, well, this is more difficult. Well, that depends on how you deal with it. My staff and I, we work every day planning. We try to teach our players, Dr. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first habit is be proactive, meaning you got to plan ahead. So while things were changing, we were making plans to change along with it.
Are you a life coach?
Oh, absolutely. I spent. Here's a good example. My players, most of them have never been to a Broadway show. And tomorrow we leave for New York. We're playing Colorado in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. And Saturday night we'll be taking the players to Hamilton. And today I will be explaining to them who Alexander Hamilton is, why his best friend was George Washington, why Aaron Burr shot Alexander Hamilton,
Spoiler alert.
and why we fought the Revolutionary War, and why there's a United States of America.
I'm sure they'll enjoy it more than when you tell the story. The reveal, I think, will be cool to them. But you got to.
Can you also wrap this lesson?
It's interesting though. You got a big smile on your face because somewhere around the business of this, like the joys of teaching, are what move you, I gather.
Exactly. My high school coach was the reason and inspiration that I got into coaching. I love learning from him, listening to him. He was always telling me stories, sometimes about basketball, sometimes just about life. He was the most highly networked guy that I knew growing up. He knew everybody. In fact, how crazy it was, my father in 1993 was diagnosed with cancer. My mom called me. I was living in Bowling Green, Ohio. I hadn't lived in New York in well over 20 years. And she said to me, I need a doctor for your dad. Well, who do you think about calling? Well, I called my high school coach and said, what do I do to help my father? And he said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'll get the doctor. And he did. Within a day, my father was at Sloan Kettering working with the best oncologists. So my high school coach was a great role model for me, and I've tried to emulate him.
Coach, I want to talk to you about one of your strong suits, which has always been player development. We've seen how far a player like Wooga, who was left alone in the Elite Eight against Kansas, and now he's turned himself with your coaching into a player that's talked about as a lottery pick. But I want to specifically talk about Norchad Omier, who had options this offseason, has a bit of a tweener body. He's built like nobody in this program has ever been built outside of Jimmy Graham. And he's always had a nice touch, but he's developed a more consistent three-point shot, and you seem to be giving him a green light. How much of your offseason outlook is, I got to do what's best for the team, but also, Norchad, to get to this next level, I'm going to help you in those ways. Help the team, but also help you in your next phase.
Yeah, well, you must have been watching us pretty closely because I'm glad
at every game, Coach. Go Canes.
Hey, so here's what happens. Last spring, Norchad sits down with me and his high school coach who's advising him. And Norchad says he wants to try out with the NBA and test the waters. So I said, well, who's your agent? And he said, well, I don't want an agent. I want you to set up tryouts for me. So I did. I worked with him to try to get him exposure. And then I talked to all the NBA guys when Norchad pulled his name out. I asked them, what are the things you feel like he needs to do to better position himself to play in the NBA? They said, develop his three-point shot and his ball handling. So we immediately went to work on him actually rebounding the ball and dribbling it himself, pushing it in transition. If you watch his play closely enough, you'll see it's not every time. He outlets the ball plenty, but he'll also handle the ball a lot more. And then we worked on his three-point shot, and he spent a ton of time developing it. He's now shooting right around 40% from three. He's in the 80 percentile in free throws. So his shooting has improved, his ball handling has improved, and he's still a monster on the glass.
Have you had a player that physically strong?
Yes. I've actually had a number of guys over the course of my career. I mean, he's like a Greek god. His body is incredible. But he's also like the nicest human being off the court. He's got all the best qualities, the best personality that a person can have. He is a tremendous competitor on the court and a very nice person off the court.
Did you just say of Mike Ryan, though, in his face, did you just say, if you've been watching us closely? Are you not aware? Are you not aware of just how closely Mike Ryan?
No, he gave me credit. He gave me credit on the top end. He's like, you must be watching closely.
Well, this is what this is the reason you ask questions at this point, right? So that somebody can tell you, yes, you've been watching
flash my bona
closely.
fides?
Yes. Well, because you care about this team deeply. You came in here today raving about beating up Rod Strickland by 50. You're invested in this team. You care deeply about this team, and you think, now that you've gotten a taste of the Elite Eight and Final Four, you think this team could be the best team, and Jim needs to know that.
Coach, we're blue blood. You have us building every year by year, Elite Eight, Final Four. We had a tough break. That Loyola stole our Final Four. Bruce Brown and Lonnie Walker, we're going to the Final Four that year. You've been here, we had to remind ourselves, you've been here for 13 years. When people look back at your storied career, this may be the program that you're associated with, and that's crazy considering you took George Mason to a Final Four.
I thought he was coming here to retire. I criticized him on air for coming here to retire.
But no, you got plenty of life in you, and you're building something special, and I'm sure it warms your heart, Coach, to see what's happening there, especially on weekend spotlight games. You know what that student section used to look like. I know what that student section used to look like. You're building a basketball culture here, and there is no reason why the Watsco shouldn't be 10, 20 years down the line looked at as one of the prestigious places in college basketball. You're building something that special.
Well, I agree with you there. When my staff and I first came in 2011, I said we not only want to have a good team, but we want to have a great program. We want to build tradition and develop a program that consistently competes with the top teams in the ACC and in the nation. And we've been able to do that over a short period of time. But we're still well behind the blue bloods like Kansas and Carolina and Duke and Kentucky. We need in our recruiting to be able to get some of the very best talent.
More money.
You mentioned
more money.
Lonnie Walker.
More
Bruce
money.
Brown.
More money. Come on, Jim. Let's do an infomercial. Hey, Miami, he needs more money. Jim Larrañaga needs more money. In recruiting, we need more money. Miami, Jim, you know how hard it is to build a business in Miami. Jim, nobody's made that program work the way that you have. I think we need to do an infomercial together right now. Hey, Miami, we need more money. We got to keep these players paid so that Coach can take them to Hamilton.
Well, here's what I would say about that. My staff knows that there are certain players I don't want to coach because they're high maintenance. They're kids that think only of themselves. We're constantly looking at kids who are very team-oriented, who are very competitive, who really understand the game of basketball, who come here for all the right reasons. They want to get a great education. They want to live in this kind of beautiful environment. They want to compete in the ACC against the best players in the country. And of course, they want to play after they've played in college. They want to get to the NBA, and we want to prepare them for that. You used Wooga Poplar as an example. He's a perfect example of a young man who came here. He's physically gifted, but he had to learn to play the college game. And while he's playing the college game, we're working with him on his skills to become an NBA player. And if you see what he's doing now, he's going to be probably a lottery pick at the end of this season if he chooses to go pro.
Look at Mike. Mike's got the
Some are saying.
He's got the self-satisfied
Dan,
look.
you're an alumnus from the University of Miami. What can you do to help better this program? I know you're friends with Carlos Boozer. Get on that text right now. We need to help build this program.
I'm not a college basketball insider, but I think the Boozer kids are going to betray their old man and strike out on their own. But I'm not an insider. I'm speculating.
God, your mouth, God's ears.
Jim, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it, sir.
My pleasure, fellas.